Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. I thought I was untouchable. I thought I knew how to survive anything. I was wrong. It started in the conference room B7 deep beneath the Capitol building. Most of America was watching Sunday night football. I was in an emergency session with 12 other senators, 3 CDC officials, and a handful of military brass whose names I'd never bothered to learn. Dr. Elena Lane sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, her usually pristine appearance disheveled. Dark circles ringed her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as she arranged papers that kept slipping from her grasp. In 15 years of dealing with government scientists, I'd never seen one this rattled. "Gentlemen, ladies," she began, her voice cracking on the first word. "The situation in Atlanta has escalated beyond our initial containment protocols." Senator Patricia Walsh leaned forward, her sharp features focused. Patricia and I had been allies for 8 years, trading favors and covering each other's tracks through countless scandals. She understood the game as well as anyone. "Define escalated, Dr. Lane," Patricia said with the clinical precision that made her so effective in committee hearings. Dr. Lane pulled up a map on the wall display. Red zones pulsed across downtown Atlanta like infected wounds. At 6:47 p.m. Eastern, we lost contact with our primary containment facility. 43 minutes later, emergency services reported multiple incidents of extreme violence in a 6-block radius. My first thought wasn't about casualties or national security. It was opportunity. Crisis always meant opportunity for those smart enough to see it. Emergency powers, expanded budgets, new legislation written in backroom deals while the public was distracted by fear. "What kind of violence?" I asked, already mentally calculating which defense contractors might benefit from an enhanced domestic security response. The doctor's hands shook harder as she tapped her tablet. Security footage filled the screen, grainy, black and white but clear enough. A man in a hospital gown lurched through what looked like a parking garage, his movements wrong somehow, like a marionette operated by a drunk puppeteer. He encountered a security guard, and what happened next made even my cynical stomach clench. The patient didn't just attack. He bit the guard's throat with savage efficiency, tearing away chunks of flesh while the victim screamed and thrashed. Blood sprayed across concrete walls in arterial patterns. The guard's movements grew weaker, then stopped entirely, but 30 seconds later he stood up, his head lolling at an unnatural angle, and shambled toward a family trying to reach their car. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered. "Language, Senator," I said automatically, though my voice sounded hollow even to me. "Dr. Lane, I assume this is some kind of psychological break? Drug-induced psychosis?" She shook her head, wiping sweat from her forehead despite the room's air conditioning. "Senator Calloway, we've confirmed 47 cases exhibiting identical behavior. Initial bite victims expire within minutes, then exhibit aggressive tendencies toward uninfected individuals. They show no response to pain, no recognition of former relationships, and appear driven solely by basic instincts." The room fell silent. I could hear the ventilation system humming, the distant sound of traffic on the streets above, the rustling of papers as hands moved nervously. Senator Walsh broke the silence. "You're describing zombie behavior, Dr. Lane. We're describing individuals affected by an unknown pathogenic agent with rapid transmission rates and severe neurological effects, Dr. Lane corrected, but her clinical language couldn't hide the fear in her voice. General Sagan, a man whose chest held enough ribbons to decorate a Christmas tree, leaned forward. His weathered face had seen combat in 3 different wars, but tonight, he looked every one of his 68 years. "Doctor, what's the infection vector? How does it spread?" "Fluid contact appears to be the primary method. Saliva, blood, potentially other bodily fluids. We've observed transmission through bite wounds with 100% reliability." I was already thinking 3 moves ahead. Quarantine meant federal emergency powers. Emergency powers meant suspended civil liberties. Suspended civil liberties meant opportunities for those with the right connections to shape the response. The pharmaceutical lobbies alone would pay millions for the right senator to ensure their products got fast-tracked through emergency approval processes. What about containment? I asked. Are we looking at a localized incident or potential spread? Dr. Lane exchanged glances with General Sagan. The look they shared carried the weight of information I wasn't getting. We've lost contact with containment teams in Birmingham and Jacksonville, the general said finally. Similar reports are coming in from Memphis and Charlotte. The implications hit me like cold water. This wasn't a local crisis I could exploit. This was something that could threaten the entire power structure I'd spent 2 decades building. How many people are we talking about? Senator Walsh asked. Conservative estimates suggest several thousand infected across 4 metropolitan areas, with exponential growth patterns, Dr. Lane replied. If current transmission rates continue unchecked, we could see complete regional saturation within 72 hours. Regional saturation. The phrase echoed in my mind as I processed what it meant. I'd built my career on controlling narratives, on spinning disasters into political advantage. But you can't spin the collapse of civilization. My secure phone buzzed against my leg. The caller ID showed Curtex Security, the private military company that handled protection for select government officials. Their services didn't come cheap, but they provided certain accommodations that regular Secret Service couldn't offer. "Excuse me," I said, stepping away from the table. "I need to take this." Agent Brooks answered on the first ring. His voice carried the professional calm of someone trained to manage crisis situations. "Senator, we need to discuss your security arrangements. There have been developments." "I'm in briefing, Brooks. Whatever it is can wait." "Sir, with respect, it can't. We've activated your contingency protocols. The bunker facility is operational and ready for immediate occupancy. We recommend movement within the hour." The bunker. 3 years ago, I'd helped push through a classified appropriations bill that funded emergency continuity facilities for essential government personnel. What the bill didn't mention was that several senators had negotiated private access to these facilities for themselves and their families. The public thought their tax dollars were protecting democracy. Reality, they were funding luxury survival accommodations for the political class. "How many positions are available?" I asked, already knowing I'd need to make some calls. "Facility can accommodate 47 individuals with full life support for 18 months. 23 slots are reserved for government continuity. 24 are discretionary." Discretionary meant purchased. Each slot had cost me $2 million, funneled through shell companies and political action committees. The kind of transaction that would end careers if it ever came to light, but provided exactly this kind of insurance policy. "I'll need 5 slots total," I said, thinking quickly. "Myself, Senator Walsh, plus 3 staff members." "Confirmed, Senator. Transport will be at your location in 30 minutes. I ended the call and returned to the table, where Dr. Martinez was fielding increasingly panicked questions from my colleagues. The mood in the room had shifted from concerned to desperate. These were people used to being in control, used to having answers, and they were confronting something that didn't respond to political pressure or financial influence. "Patricia," I whispered, leaning close to her ear, "I need to speak with you privately." We stepped into the small antechamber adjacent to the conference room. Patricia's sharp eyes immediately read my expression. "You've got something," she said. It wasn't a question. "Emergency facility, private access. We can be there in 40 minutes. Her face showed relief, then calculation. "Cost? Handled. But we need to move soon." "What about the others?" She gestured toward the conference room. I looked through the doorway at my fellow senators, at Dr. Lane desperately trying to answer questions she didn't have answers for, at General Sagan coordinating with military units that might already be overrun. "What about them?" Patricia studied my face for a long moment. "Richard, if this is as bad as they're saying, then the people in that room are yesterday's power structure. The question is whether we adapt fast enough to be part of tomorrow's." She nodded slowly. "How long do we have?" 20 minutes. We slipped back into the conference room just as Dr. Lane was explaining the failure of military containment efforts. The footage now showed streets filled with shambling figures, abandoned military vehicles, and fires burning unchecked through residential neighborhoods. "Ladies and gentlemen," General Sagan announced, "we're implementing emergency protocols immediately. All non-essential government personnel are to be evacuated from the DC area within 6 hours. Senator Gable, a man whose entire career was built on appearing concerned about regular Americans, raised his hand. "What about our constituents? What about evacuation plans for major population centers?" General Sagan's expression didn't change. "We're prioritizing government continuity and essential infrastructure protection." Translation: "We're saving ourselves first." I caught Patricia's eye and nodded toward the door. We gathered our papers and moved toward the exit as casually as possible. "Richard, Patricia," Senator Walsh called out. "Where are you going?" "Checking on our families," I lied smoothly. "Making sure they're safe before we continue." The conference room erupted in similar concerns as other senators suddenly remembered they had families to protect. The orderly briefing dissolved into chaos as everyone tried to make calls and coordinate personal security simultaneously. We made it to the elevator before anyone thought to question our departure. As the doors closed, I saw Dr. Lane still standing at the head of the table, trying to brief senators who were no longer listening. The elevator rose toward ground level, carrying us away from the underground conference room, where America's leadership was learning they had no answers for what was coming. Outside, Washington, D.C. continued its normal Sunday night routine, unaware that their government was already planning to abandon them. "You know this makes us complicit," Patricia said as we reached the parking level. "In what? Taking reasonable precautions during a national emergency? In leaving everyone else to die?" I looked at her as we walked toward the waiting black SUV that would take us to safety. "Patricia, we didn't create this crisis. We're just intelligent enough to survive it." Agent Brooks stood beside the vehicle, his tactical gear stark against the concrete garage. He was a large man, built like a linebacker, but moving with the fluid precision of someone trained in close protection. His face showed professional calm, but I noticed the way his eyes constantly scanned our surroundings. "Senator, ma'am." He nodded as we approached. "We need to move immediately. Reports indicate the infection has reached the outer suburbs." "How close?" Patricia asked. "Bethesda has gone dark. Alexandria is reporting multiple incidents. We estimate 20 minutes before potential contact with DC. Proper. 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, the most powerful city in the world would face the same chaos we'd seen in Atlanta. And I would be safely underground, protected by steel doors and armed guards, while 500,000 people above ground discovered that their government's emergency plans didn't include them. As the SUV pulled away from the Capitol, I looked back at the building where I'd spent 20 years accumulating power. The dome still stood majestic against the night sky, still symbolized everything I'd worked to control. But symbols don't stop the dead from walking. The ride to the bunker facility took us through increasingly chaotic streets. Even in the government district, signs of panic were emerging. Sirens wailed in the distance. Military vehicles moved in convoy formation toward unknown destinations. People clustered around television screens in all-night diners, their faces illuminated by emergency broadcasts. "Sir," Brooks said through the vehicle's intercom, "we're getting reports of incidents downtown. Recommend we take alternative route to the facility." "Do whatever's necessary," I replied, trying to maintain the authoritative tone that had served me well in committee meetings. But authority means nothing when civilization is collapsing around you. We turned away from the main arteries, winding through residential neighborhoods where people still believed they were safe, where families still thought their government would protect them, where children slept peacefully in beds while their parents watched late-night television, unaware that everything they'd ever known was ending. Patricia stared out the window at a house where a family was loading suitcases into their car, probably planning a normal vacation. "They have no idea," she whispered. "Better for them," I said. "Panic just makes everything worse." "Richard, we could have warned them. Could have used the emergency broadcast system. given people a chance to evacuate, and created mass panic that would have killed more people than the infection itself? Patricia, we made the smart choice. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it anymore. The bunker facility sat 30 miles outside D.C., disguised as a private corporate retreat center. From the outside, it looked like any other wealthy company's executive training facility. Manicured lawns, discreet security, elegant architecture that whispered money rather than shouting it. The reality was something far more impressive. We descended through multiple security checkpoints, each level more sophisticated than the last. Biometric scanners, armed guards, blast doors that could withstand nuclear attack. This wasn't just a bunker. It was a fortress designed to protect the very wealthy from any conceivable threat. The interior exceeded even my expectations. Instead of military functionality, the designers had created luxury accommodations that rivaled five-star hotels. Private suites with king-sized beds, gourmet kitchens, entertainment systems. Even a small library stocked with first-edition books. Impressive, Patricia observed as we were shown to our quarters. $2 million impressive, I replied. But worth every penny. Other bunker residents were arriving as we settled in. I recognized several faces. Senators from key committees, cabinet officials, defense contractors who'd helped fund the facility's construction. The kind of people who understood that survival was just another transaction, and they had the resources to purchase the best insurance available. At 1:47 a.m., the facility's blast doors sealed with a sound like thunder. 60 feet of concrete and steel now separated us from whatever was happening on the surface. For the first time since Dr. Martinez had shown us that security footage, I felt genuinely safe. We gathered in the main common area, a space designed to look like an exclusive hotel lobby rather than a survival shelter. Leather furniture, crystal chandeliers, and oil paintings created an atmosphere of refined comfort that made it easy to forget we were hiding underground while the world ended above our heads. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced Director Hargrove, the facility's commander, "you are now secure within one of the most advanced survival installations ever constructed. Our air filtration systems can handle chemical, biological, and radiological threats. Our food supplies will support full capacity for 18 months. Our communications equipment maintains contact with military command structures worldwide." Polite applause rippled through the group. These were people accustomed to exclusive privileges, and the bunker felt like just another luxury service they'd purchased. "What's the surface situation?" asked Senator Fox, a man whose family had owned textile mills for 3 generations before he entered politics. "Initial reports indicate widespread breakdown of civil authority in major metropolitan areas. Military units are establishing perimeter defenses around strategic installations. Civilian evacuation efforts are encountering difficulties. Encountering difficulties." The euphemism hung in the air like perfume masking the smell of death. Above our heads, millions of Americans were discovering that their government's emergency plans had never included them. I poured myself 3 fingers of 18-year-old Macallan from the bar and settled into a leather armchair that probably cost more than most people's cars. For the first time in hours, I allowed myself to relax. We'd made it. While the rest of the country faced whatever horror was spreading through the streets, we were safe, protected, insulated from consequences by money, influence, and the foresight to purchase our survival in advance. I raised my glass in a private toast. To survival, to smart choices, to the wisdom of planning for disaster while others buried their heads in the sand. The whiskey was smooth, warming my throat as chaos raged somewhere far above. That's when Agent Brooks staggered into the common area, his tactical vest dark with spreading blood. The common area fell silent as Agent Brooks stumbled forward, one hand pressed against his tactical vest where dark blood seeped between his fingers. His face was pale, slick with sweat. "Sir," he said, his voice strained, "we have a problem." I set down my whiskey, the crystal tumbler clicking against marble. Around me, the other bunker residents shifted uncomfortably. "What kind of problem?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Perimeter breach. 3 infected made it past the outer defenses. They got Voss and Kellerman before we put them down. Senator Walsh leaned forward. How is that possible? This facility was designed to be impenetrable. Brooks's laugh carried no humor. Ma'am, these things don't follow tactical doctrine. They don't retreat. They don't fear pain. Voss put 6 rounds center mass into one and it kept coming until he got a headshot. Patricia's face had gone pale. Agent Brooks, you're bleeding. He looked down at his vest. Scratches. One of them got close. Just scratches. But I'd seen enough political scandals to recognize lies. The way his eyes avoided contact, the tremor in his voice. Brooks was hiding something. Thomas Brennan spoke up from across the room. Old money, generational wealth built on defense contracts stretching back to World War II. Agent Brooks, you don't look well. Perhaps you should sit down. I'm operational, Brooks replied. But his voice carried a slur now. We need to discuss evacuation procedures. Evacuation? I interrupted. From the most secure facility on the East Coast? Brooks swayed, catching himself against the leather sofa. Sir, secure means nothing when they don't stop coming. Ever. Brooks collapsed before anyone could respond. His body hit the marble floor with a wet sound. Dark blood pooled beneath him, more than should have come from scratches. Dr. Prentice rushed forward with his medical bag. Everyone stand back. He knelt beside Brooks, checking vitals. His face grew grave. Pulses thready, blood pressure dropping. He's going into shock. Dr. Prentice looked up. These aren't scratches, these are deep lacerations. We have a medical bay, Director Hargrove replied. Full surgical capabilities. Help me get him. Brooks's eyes snapped open. The transformation was instantaneous. One moment unconscious and bleeding, the next moving with terrifying speed. His hand shot out, grabbing Dr. Prentice by the wrist. The doctor screamed as Brooks pulled him down, teeth sinking into Prentice's throat with savage efficiency. Blood sprayed across white marble in arterial spurts. Chaos erupted. Senator Fox stumbled backward. Patricia grabbed my arm. Catherine Morse shouted orders nobody listened to. Director Hargrove drew his sidearm. Everyone get back. But Brooks wasn't finished. He released Prentice's mangled throat and turned toward Senator Walsh. His eyes were no longer human, just empty, driven by hunger. Patricia tried to run. Brooks moved with mechanical precision, catching her ankle, sending her sprawling. Patricia! I lunged forward. Hargrove's pistol barked twice. The first shot took Brooks in the shoulder, spinning him but not stopping him. The second punched through his skull. Brooks collapsed like cut strings. The silence was deafening. Patricia lay gasping, blood running from scrapes. Dr. Prentice writhed beside the overturned table, hands pressed against his torn throat. Is everyone all right? Hargrove asked, weapon trained on Brooks's motionless form. Nobody answered. We were staring at Dr. Prentice, watching him die. It took 43 seconds. He stopped moving gradually. Struggles growing weaker until his hands fell away. His breathing became shallow, irregular, then stopped. Then Dr. Prentice opened his eyes, empty now, vacant of everything human. He sat up with mechanical precision, head turning toward us with predatory focus. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Prentice lurched to his feet with that same horrible fluidity. His movements were wrong, like broken machinery, but he moved with purpose. Toward us. Director Hargrove raised his weapon, hands shaking. Stay back! But we weren't alone. From the corridor came stumbling footsteps. Voss and Kellerman appeared in the doorway. Dead for 20 minutes, but death hadn't stopped them. Voss still wore tactical gear, torn and bloodied. Half his face was missing. Kellerman's arm hung at an impossible angle, bone protruding through his sleeve. But they were moving, walking, hunting. The medical bay, Hargrove said quietly. They must have turned down there. How many people? Patricia asked. Hargrove's face went white. 6, maybe 7. The implication hit us. If they'd all turned, our sanctuary had become a tomb. What followed was 3 hours of methodical horror. We armed ourselves and moved through the bunker's levels. eliminating infected staff one by one. But with each infected we put down, tensions within our group grew worse. Thomas Brennan began questioning every decision. Catherine Morse started hoarding supplies. Senator Fox had a breakdown after shooting an infected maintenance worker. By 5 a.m., we'd cleared most of the facility. 12 infected eliminated. The bunker was secure, but trust was eroding. "Status report," I called as we regrouped. 2 minor injuries, Catherine reported. "Ammunition is low, 60 rounds total." "Communications?" "Still down. No external contact." I looked around the blood-stained area. "We need to discuss long-term survival strategy." "Actually," Thomas Brennan interrupted, "we need to discuss leadership." The challenge was direct. "Thomas, what exactly are you proposing?" "Democratic leadership. We vote on decisions. Equal representation." "This isn't a democracy," Patricia interjected. "This is survival." "Agreed," Catherine said. "But it doesn't have to be Richard." The vote was 7-4 against me. In 6 hours, I'd gone from being one of the most powerful men in America to being outvoted by scared plutocrats. Brennan was smart. He understood that leadership here wasn't about charisma. It was about controlling resources. He appointed himself quartermaster. Catherine took medical supplies. Fox handled communications. I was given advisory status, polite language for being sidelined. 2 hours later, Fox made contact. "I'm getting something," he announced excitedly. "Military frequency, automated broadcast." We gathered around the radio as static resolved. "This is Emergency Command Authority. Quarantine zones established. Military forces implementing containment. All civilian survivors proceed to designated safe zones for processing." "Safe zones," Patricia whispered. Fox worked for another hour, eventually establishing communication with a military unit 40 miles east. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes confirmed safe zones and offered extraction within hours. "They'll send a helicopter," Fox reported. "We just provide coordinates." "I don't like it," I announced. "We're secure here. Why risk everything?" "Because we can't live underground forever," Patricia said. "We need medical care, contact with the outside world." "The outside world is gone. This is the only safe harbor left." "This is a tomb," Catherine corrected. The vote was 9-2 for evacuation. Patricia and I were the only holdouts. That night, Brennan found me in the observation deck. "You're wrong," he said, stepping into the room. "About what?" "About isolation being survival." He moved beside me. "Richard, you're not adapting. I'm being realistic. You're being a politician, still trying to control instead of responding." He paused. "You can't accept that you're not special anymore." "Thomas, what are you saying?" "Some people adapt. Some become liabilities." "Liabilities?" "Threats to group survival. You've been arguing against every decision. You're destabilizing. I'm providing alternatives. You're undermining cohesion during crisis. That makes you dangerous. What do you want? Tomorrow, when that helicopter arrives, you're going to be enthusiastic. You're going to thank everyone. And if I'm not?" His smile was cold. "Then you'll discover how democratic our structure really is." The next morning arrived overcast. Fox's radio crackled with military communications. "ETA 15 minutes, he announced. "They want us assembled with minimal belongings." As we prepared to cycle through the airlock, I found myself studying faces. 4 days ago, we'd been the most powerful people in America. Now we were refugees. "Wait," I called out. "I think we should reconsider." "Richard!" Patricia grabbed my arm. "Don't do this. We're secure here. Why risk everything?" "Because we can't live underground forever," Catherine said firmly. "The outside world is gone. This is the only safe harbor." Brennan stepped forward. "Richard, you've been fighting every decision. Time to accept you're outvoted. This isn't about voting. This is survival." "Exactly. And you're threatening our survival with paranoia." I looked around the group. They'd made their decision about evacuation and about me. "Fine, but I'm not going." "You don't have a choice," Brennan said quietly. Actually, I do. Richard, Patricia pleaded, come with us. I'm staying. Someone needs to maintain the facility, provide backup. Nobody's staying behind, Catherine declared. We leave together. You can't force me. Actually, we can, Brennan interrupted. Hargrove moved closer to my position. The message was clear. You're talking about forcing me at gunpoint? If necessary. Director Hargrove, I'm ordering you to stand down. Hargrove's expression was apologetic but firm. Senator, you don't have authority anymore. Mr. Brennan is group leader. And if I refuse to comply, then you'll be contained until evacuation is complete, Brennan replied. For group safety. But I forced a smile. You know what? You're right, I have been paranoid. I stepped away from controls. I'll get my gear. Actually, Brennan said, better if you stayed here. Let us establish contact, verify everything's secure. Then we'll come back. Come back for me? Once we confirm evacuation is legitimate, an hour, maybe 2. I felt the trap closing. If you leave me here alone, you won't be alone, Catherine said. We're leaving Director Hargrove for company. Hargrove's hand rested on his sidearm. Comply or be forced. After 20 years, Patricia, you're abandoning me? Her face crumpled slightly. Richard, you'll be safer here. Once we establish contact, there won't be any coming back. Don't be dramatic, Brennan said. You'll be perfectly safe. The airlock cycled open. One by one, they filed through. Patricia was last, pausing to look back. I'm sorry, Richard, she whispered, but you did this to yourself. The airlock sealed with thunder. I stood listening to mechanical sounds. 60 feet above, my former allies breathed free air. Below, I was trapped. Senator, Hargrove said quietly, if you cooperate, this doesn't have to be difficult. Cooperate with being abandoned to die? You're not going to die. You're safer here than anyone. I poured myself whiskey. How long are you keeping me? Until evacuation is complete and verified. And if it fails, then they'll return. Will they? His silence was answer enough. Do you really think they're coming back? Hargrove was quiet. Mr. Brennan is focused on group survival. Sometimes that requires hard choices, like sacrificing inconvenient members, like removing destabilizing influences. And you're comfortable abandoning a U.S. Senator. Sir, there's no U.S. Senate. There's just survivors trying to stay alive, and you were threatening that. By advocating caution. By refusing to accept the old world is gone. A sound from the corridor made us freeze. Footsteps, but not human movement. The irregular shuffle of something that had once been human. That's impossible, Hargrove whispered, drawing his sidearm. We cleared the facility. The shuffling grew closer, accompanied by low moaning. The medical bay, I said quietly. Did you check the isolation rooms? Hargrove's face went pale. The what? Level 3 isolation rooms for quarantine patients. Reinforced doors, independent air circulation. If someone was locked in there when they turned, they'd be contained until someone opened the door. More sounds joined the first. Multiple footsteps, multiple voices moaning. Not one infected, but several. How many isolation rooms? I don't know. This place was designed for treating officials exposed to biological threats. How much ammunition do you have? None, remember? You confiscated civilian weapons when your boss decided I was a security risk. 1 handgun, maybe 30 rounds, facing unknown numbers of infected. The first infected appeared at the corridor entrance. A medical technician, judging by the torn white coat. Half its face was missing, revealing bone and sinew. Its remaining eye focused on us with mechanical precision. Behind it came others. Medical staff, security personnel, a maintenance worker. Too many, Hargrove said, raising his weapon. We need the armory. Those things are between us and the stairs. Service corridors. Kitchen access. But sounds came from other directions. They were coming from multiple points. They're surrounding us. How? You cleared the facility. We cleared public areas. Medical facilities have their own protocols. Locked rooms requiring special authorization. Rooms you didn't check. Rooms we couldn't check. Isolation ward is classified above my clearance. Even in survival, bureaucracy killed people. The infected spread through the common area, moving with horrible persistence. Not fast, but relentless. "The kitchen," I said. "Back exit." We ran. The kitchen was a professional facility designed to feed 47 people. Now it felt like a maze where infected could lurk. "Clear," Hargrove whispered. "Service exit there." We moved into narrow corridors, emergency lighting casting hellish red shadows. Behind us, infected blundered through the kitchen, following our scent. 200 meters, Hargrove said. 3 minutes felt like eternity. We reached the armory as pursuit grew closer. Hargrove's keycard opened the door. "Take whatever you can carry," he ordered, grabbing an assault rifle. I selected a shotgun. The weight felt alien but solid. Couple hundred rounds for rifles, 50 for shotgun. Banging echoed through the door. Something was testing the lock. They found us. They follow sound, scent, movement. As long as we're alive, they'll keep coming. The banging intensified as more infected gathered. The door would hold briefly. "When Brennan ordered you to keep me here, did he specify whether I needed to be kept alive?" Hargrove's pause answered everything. "So this isn't protective custody. This is execution by proxy." "Sir," Mr. Brennan said, "contain the threat." He didn't specify methods. But he knew about the isolated areas. He knew there might be infected we hadn't found. He knew this bunker better than anyone. His company helped design it. The pieces fell into place. Brennan hadn't just abandoned me. He'd left me in a death trap. The infected in isolation rooms weren't oversight. They were a murder weapon. "How long have you known this was assassination?" "Since before we sealed the bunker." Mr. Brennan made his intentions clear. "You were a liability that needed eliminating. And you went along. I followed orders from legitimate authority." The door shuddered under impacts. Stress fractures appeared. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry enough to help me escape? Sorry enough to make it quick." He turned his rifle toward me instead of the door. I stared into the barrel. This had never been protective custody. This was murder, planned with military precision. "Brennan played us all. Brennan adapted. You didn't." The armory door gave way with thunder. Infected poured through, dozens of them, medical staff and security who'd been trapped in isolation for hours. Hargrove spun toward the threat, survival instincts overriding assassination orders. His rifle barked repeatedly, dropping infected with headshots. Too many. I raised my shotgun, firing into the advancing mass. Heavy slugs tore through torsos, but infected kept coming. Pain meant nothing. "Reloading!" Hargrove shouted. I fired again. An infected maintenance worker went down, head missing. 2 more took his place. Hargrove's rifle jammed. "Malfunction!" The infected reached us. The first grabbed Hargrove's throat, teeth sinking into his neck. He screamed. I put the shotgun barrel against his attacker's skull and pulled the trigger. Brain matter painted walls, but more swarmed over Hargrove's body, tearing with hands and teeth. His screams became gurgles, then silence. I backed against the wall, firing until the shotgun clicked empty. Infected closed in with mechanical precision. They'd been people once, medical staff, security guards, maintenance workers. Now just hunger. The first bite took a chunk from my left forearm. Pain was incredible, like being burned and frozen simultaneously. But worse was knowing what that bite meant. The second bite tore my shoulder, then my leg. They pulled me down. As vision faded and strength bled away, my last thought was about irony. 20 years learning to survive the most corrupt system on Earth. I'd believed political skills were survival skills. But politics is about managing people, and these things weren't people anymore. The darkness took me as teeth found my throat.